Providence Municipal Court, Rhode Island. Case number 8347. The defendant stands rigid at the podium, his knuckles white against the wood. Judge Caprio reviews the citation, $150 unpaid parking fine in a hospital zone. Mr. Brennan, you stated you were visiting your mother in the ICU that day? The defendant nods quickly. Yes, Your Honor. She was critical. The judge's expression softens momentarily before he taps a photograph on his desk. This timestamp shows 2:47 p.m., but according to the hospital log, the clerk obtained. He pauses, studying the man's face. Your mother wasn't admitted until 6:15 that evening. The courtroom goes quiet. The defendant's face drains of color. His hands begin to tremble. Your Honor, Judge Caprio leans forward gently. Before we continue, I need you to understand something about this courtroom. The morning had started like any other in Providence Municipal Court. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The clerk shuffled papers at her desk. A handful of people sat in the gallery waiting their turn. Judge Frank Caprio adjusted his reading glasses and nodded to the clerk. Case number 8347, she announced. Michael Brennan. Parking violation, hospital restricted zone. A man in his early 40s stepped forward from the back row. He wore a dress shirt and slacks, business casual, slightly wrinkled. His hair was neatly combed, but his face showed fatigue. He positioned himself at the wooden podium, gripping its edges. Good morning, Mr. Brennan, the judge said warmly. Good morning, Your Honor. His voice was steady but quiet. The judge glanced at the citation. This is from, let's see, October 14th. Hospital zone on Eddy Street. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. The fine is $150. Now, before we get into this, tell me, what do you do for work? I'm a sales manager, medical equipment distribution. Okay, and you understand why you're here today? Brennan nodded. Yes, sir. I parked in a restricted zone near Rhode Island Hospital. But, Your Honor, I can explain. My mother, she collapsed that day. I got the call at work and I rushed over. I wasn't thinking about parking. I needed to see her. His voice carried genuine urgency. The judge's expression softened slightly. I understand. Family emergencies don't leave much room for thinking about parking signs. He paused. How is your mother doing now? She's stable, thank you. It was her heart. She's home now recovering. Good, I'm glad to hear that. The judge made a note. So you parked in the hospital zone because of the emergency? Yes, Your Honor, exactly. Judge Caprio nodded slowly, studying the man's face. Tell me what time this happened. Brennan shifted his weight. It was in the afternoon, around 2:30, I think. Maybe closer to 2:45. And how long were you there? Several hours, Your Honor. I stayed with her until the evening, around 7 o'clock. I completely forgot about my car until I came back out and saw the ticket. The judge tapped his pen against the desk. So you were there from roughly 2:30 until 7? Yes, sir. That's a long time to be parked in a restricted zone. I know, Your Honor, but my mother was in the ICU. I wasn't thinking about the car. Judge Caprio leaned back in his chair. There was something in the defendant's tone, rehearsed perhaps, or maybe just nervous. Hard to tell. People often practiced what they'd say in court. Mr. Brennan, I need to see the parking enforcement record. Can you pull that up? The judge addressed his clerk. She nodded and tapped at her computer. After a moment, she handed him a printout. The judge scanned it. His eyebrows raised slightly. This citation shows you were ticketed at 3:52 p.m. The officer noted your vehicle had been there for 65 minutes. That would put your arrival time at approximately 2:47. Right, yes, that sounds about right. But the officer wrote the ticket at 3:52, which means... The judge looked up. You left some time after that? Brennan hesitated, just for a second. Well, Your Honor, I may have left earlier than I remembered. It's hard to keep track when you're worried about your mother. I understand. The judge's voice remained gentle. But you just told me you stayed until 7 o'clock. I must have been confused about the time. The room went quiet. Judge Caprio set the paper down carefully. Mr. Brennan, let me ask you something. The judge folded his hands. You said your mother was in the ICU when you arrived? Yes, Your Honor. In critical condition? Yes, that's what they told me. And she collapsed that day, October 14th? Yes. The judge nodded slowly. I see. Can you tell me which unit she was in? Rhode Island Hospital has several. Brennan swallowed. The cardiac unit. 4th floor. Cardiac ICU. Okay. Judge Caprio made another note. And your mother's name for the record? Catherine Brennan. Catherine Brennan. The judge wrote it down. He looked at the clerk. Do we have the hospital verification on this? The clerk flipped through a folder and pulled out a single sheet. She walked it over to the bench. The judge read it in silence. The courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Someone in the gallery coughed. A phone buzzed and was quickly silenced. Judge Caprio looked up. His expression had changed. Not angry, but serious. Focused. Mr. Brennan, I want to make sure I understand the timeline here. You're saying your mother collapsed on October 14 and you rushed to the hospital around 2:30 in the afternoon? Yes, Your Honor. And she was admitted to the cardiac ICU? Yes. The judge held up the paper. According to the hospital's records, Catherine Brennan was admitted to Rhode Island Hospital at 6:15 p.m. that evening. Not the afternoon, the evening. The defendant's face changed. Color drained from his cheeks. His grip on the podium tightened. Your Honor, maybe I got the time confused. You were very certain a moment ago. The judge's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. You told me you rushed to the hospital at 2:30. You parked at 2:47, but your mother wasn't admitted for another 4 hours. Brennan's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Your Honor, there must be some mistake with the records. Hospital records are pretty thorough, Mr. Brennan. Maybe they logged the wrong time. Judge Caprio set the paper down gently. Or maybe you're not telling me the whole story. The defendant's hands were shaking now. He clasped them together to steady them. Your Honor, I was there earlier in the day for a pre-admission appointment. They were running tests before they officially admitted her. The judge tilted his head. A pre-admission appointment? Yes. At the same location? Same building? Well, a different entrance. But yes, the same complex. I see. The judge wrote something down. And this appointment, what time was that? Around 2:30, like I said. But you just told me you confused the times. Brennan's face flushed. I confused the admission time, but I was there for the appointment. Judge Caprio leaned forward. His voice was gentle, almost fatherly. Mr. Brennan, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've learned that when people start changing their story, it's usually because they're trying to avoid something. Now, I'm going to give you an opportunity here. I want you to think very carefully before you answer my next question. The defendant nodded, his throat working. Where exactly did you park your car at 2:47 p.m. on October 14th? Silence. Your Honor, I parked near the hospital. Near the hospital? Can you be more specific? On Eddy Street, where the ticket says. The judge reached for another document. He studied it for a long moment. Then he turned it around so the defendant could see. It was a photograph, timestamp in the corner, clear as day. Mr. Brennan, this is a photograph taken by the parking enforcement officer at the time of the citation. Do you see the timestamp? 2:47 p.m., October 14th. Brennan leaned forward, squinting at the image. His face went white. Do you see your vehicle in this photograph? Yes, Your Honor. And can you tell me what's in the background? The defendant's voice came out as barely a whisper. It looks like stores. Stores? Restaurants? A shopping district. The judge tapped the photo. This is Westminster Street, Mr. Brennan. Not Eddy Street, not anywhere near Rhode Island Hospital. Westminster Street is 4 blocks away from the hospital. 4 blocks. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Even the clerk had stopped typing. Can you explain to me why your car was parked on Westminster Street at 2:47 p.m. if you were rushing to see your mother in the hospital? Brennan's mouth moved, but no sound came out. Judge Caprio's voice hardened just slightly. Mr. Brennan, I've now given you 3 different opportunities to tell me the truth. First, you told me you parked at the hospital and stayed until 7 p.m. Then you told me you left earlier than you remembered. Then you told me you were there for a pre-admission appointment. Now I'm looking at a photograph that shows your car parked 4 blocks away in a shopping district in a metered zone where you didn't pay. He paused. I need you to understand something. I show compassion in this courtroom. I show mercy when people are honest with me about their circumstances. But I will not show mercy to someone who lies to me. Not once, not twice, and certainly not 3 times. The defendant's head dropped. His shoulders sagged. So I'm going to ask you one more time, and I want the truth. Why were you parked on Westminster Street? The silence stretched out. Brennan's breathing was audible in the quiet courtroom. His hands gripped the podium so tightly his knuckles had gone white, just like they had been when he first stepped up. Your Honor, his voice cracked. He cleared his throat. Your Honor, I'm sorry. I don't want your apology yet. I want the truth. I was meeting a client for lunch. The words came out in a rush, barely coherent. Judge Caprio didn't interrupt. I had a sales presentation scheduled at a restaurant on Westminster. It was important, a big account. I was running late. The meter parking was full, so I parked in a restricted zone. I thought I'd only be 20 minutes, but the meeting ran long, and when I came back out, there was a ticket on my windshield. And your mother? My mother's fine. She's healthy. She didn't collapse. There was no emergency. He looked up, eyes red. I panicked, Your Honor. I saw the fine was $150 and my company has a policy. If we get parking tickets during work hours, it comes out of our paycheck. I've already had one this year, another one, and I could get written up. I thought if I said it was a family emergency, you thought I'd dismiss it. Yes, sir. Judge Caprio removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter but somehow more intense. Mr. Brennan, do you understand what you've done here? You didn't just lie about a parking ticket. You fabricated a medical emergency involving your mother. You wasted this court's time having my clerk contact the hospital to verify records. You stood in front of me and lied. 3 separate times. 3 different versions of the same lie. I know. I'm so sorry, Your Honor. Why didn't you just tell me the truth from the beginning? Brennan's voice was thick now, emotion finally breaking through. I was scared. I know that sounds stupid, but I was scared of losing my job. I've already been on thin ice at work since I lost my last position. I'm supporting my mother. That part is true, Your Honor. She's elderly. She lives with me. I'm the only one she has. If I lose this job, he trailed off. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. So your mother is real. Your concerns about work are real. Your financial stress is real. Yes, sir. But instead of coming in here and telling me the truth, that you made a mistake, that you're under pressure, that you need help with this fine, you decided to lie. Yes, sir. The defendant's voice was barely audible. And in doing so, you made everything you just told me meaningless. Because now I have to wonder, is your mother really elderly? Do you really support her? Are you really at risk of losing your job? Or is that just another story you've prepared for this moment? The words landed like physical blows. Brennan flinched with each one. Your Honor, I swear, your word doesn't mean much to me right now, Mr. Brennan. The judge looked down at the citation again. The courtroom waited. Someone in the gallery shifted in their seat, the wood creaking softly. Here's what I know for certain, the judge continued. I know you parked illegally on Westminster Street on October 14. I know you received a citation for $150. And I know you came into my courtroom today and lied to me repeatedly when given every chance to tell the truth. He looked up. What I don't know is whether you understand the seriousness of what you've done. This isn't about the parking ticket anymore. This is about integrity. This is about what it means to stand in a court of law and speak honestly. Brennan's head was still down. His voice came out muffled. I understand, Your Honor. I made a terrible mistake. You made several terrible mistakes. The parking violation was one. The lies were another. But the biggest mistake? The judge paused. You didn't trust this court to show you compassion if you told the truth. That made Brennan look up. I've dismissed tickets for people with real emergencies, the judge said. I've dismissed tickets for people who made honest mistakes. I've reduced fines for people who are struggling financially. But in every single one of those cases, the person standing where you're standing right now told me the truth. They were honest about their circumstances. They didn't fabricate emergencies or change their stories when caught. The judge leaned forward, his expression serious but not unkind. You want to know the irony of this, Mr. Brennan? If you had walked in here this morning and told me the truth, that you were late for an important client meeting, that you parked illegally, that you're worried about your job and supporting your elderly mother, I probably would have worked with you. I might have reduced the fine. I might have arranged a payment plan, but you didn't give me that chance. Brennan's face crumpled. Not dramatically, just a quiet collapse of composure. His shoulders shook once, briefly. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I'm sorry," he said again, and this time it sounded genuine. "I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I know that. I don't have any excuse." Judge Caprio watched him for a long moment. The fluorescent lights hummed. The clerk's computer fan whirred softly. Outside, a car horn honked distantly. "Mr. Brennan, I want you to understand something." The judge's voice was firm but measured. "People come through this courtroom every day with real problems, real grief, real emergencies. When you lie about those things, you diminish them. You make it harder for me to believe the next person who has a genuine crisis." The defendant nodded, unable to speak. Tears rolled down his cheeks now, unchecked. He didn't try to hide them. "I could refer you for contempt of court," the judge continued. "I could add penalties on top of the original fine. I could make this significantly worse for you than it already is. I understand, Your Honor, but I'm not going to do that." Brennan looked up, confused. "I'm not going to do that," the judge repeated, "because I don't think that's what you need. I think what you need is to learn something. And I think what the people in this courtroom need to see is that mercy and accountability can exist together." He picked up his pen. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to dismiss the $150 fine." The defendant's eyes widened. "But," the judge held up a hand, "that doesn't mean you're walking out of here with nothing. You're going to write me a letter, a formal apology to this court. I want you to explain in your own words why lying was wrong, what you've learned, and how you plan to do better. I want it on my desk within 2 weeks." "Yes, Your Honor, of course. And second, you're going to complete 20 hours of community service at Rhode Island Hospital." The defendant blinked. "The hospital?" "That's right. The same hospital you claim to have such an urgent need to visit. I want you to spend 20 hours there. Not as a visitor, as a volunteer. I want you to see what real emergencies look like. I want you to understand what the people who work there deal with every single day. And maybe, when you're helping someone who actually is in crisis, you'll remember what it felt like to stand here and lie about it." Brennan was nodding before the judge finished speaking. "Yes, Your Honor, absolutely, thank you." "Don't thank me yet." Judge Caprio's voice was gentle now. "This is not a reward. This is accountability. You made a choice to lie, and now you're making a choice to do better. The question is whether you'll follow through." "I will, Your Honor, I promise." "Your promises haven't meant much today, Mr. Brennan, but I'm going to give you a chance to prove that can change." The judge made several notes on the paperwork in front of him. The courtroom remained quiet. The defendant stood very still, hands at his sides now, no longer gripping the podium. "I want to be very clear about something," the judge said, looking up. "This dismissal is conditional. If you don't complete the letter and the community service within 30 days, the original fine will be reinstated, with penalties. Are we clear?" "Yes, Your Honor, very clear." "And if you ever come back to this courtroom, for any reason, and I find out you've lied to me again, I will not be this forgiving. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." Judge Caprio set down his pen. He looked at the man standing before him, still fighting tears, still trembling slightly, but standing straighter now. Less defensive, more present. "Mr. Brennan, your mother's health is real. Your work pressures are real. Your fear of financial struggle is real. Those are all legitimate concerns. But when you lie about them, you make them weapons instead of truths. You make it impossible for people to help you. I understand now, Your Honor. I hope you do, because the next time you're in a difficult situation, and there will be a next time, life is full of them. You'll have to make a choice. You can face it honestly, or you can lie and make it worse. What happened here today? This was you making it worse." The defendant nodded, wiping his eyes again. "But it's also you getting a second chance. Don't waste it." "I won't, Your Honor." Brennan's voice was steady now despite the tears. "I won't waste it." Judge Caprio leaned back in his chair. He studied the man for another moment, then nodded. My clerk will give you the paperwork for the community service. You'll need to contact the volunteer coordinator at Rhode Island Hospital within 1 week. They'll set up your schedule. 20 hours. And I want documentation when you're done. Yes, sir. And the letter goes directly to me, not to the clerk, not to some administrative office, to me personally. I want to read what you have to say. I'll write it this week, Your Honor. Good. The judge's expression softened just slightly. You know, Mr. Brennan, I see a lot of people in this courtroom. People who park illegally because they're running late for work. People who forget to pay meters. People who make honest mistakes. And you know what? Most of them are terrified when they come in here. Terrified of the fine, terrified of the consequences, terrified of being judged. The defendant listened, not moving. That fear makes people do foolish things. It makes them lie. It makes them exaggerate. It makes them turn a simple parking ticket into this, he gestured at the papers spread across his desk, into a whole production about sick mothers and ICU visits and family emergencies. He paused. But here's what I want you to remember. The people who walk out of this courtroom feeling good about themselves, they're not the ones who told the best lies. They're the ones who told the hardest truths. The person who says, Judge, I screwed up. I parked illegally because I was lazy, and I can't afford this fine, and I'm asking for help. That person gets my respect. That person gets my compassion. Brennan nodded slowly. Be that person next time, Mr. Brennan. I will, Your Honor. I promise. He caught himself. I mean, I'll try. I'll really try. For the first time since the hearing began, Judge Caprio smiled. Just a small one. That's all any of us can do. The judge signed the dismissal paperwork and handed it to the clerk. She walked over to the defendant and gave him 2 forms, one for the community service, one with instructions for submitting the letter. Thank you, Brennan said quietly, taking them. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me. Go do the work. Come back in 30 days with proof you've completed everything. Then we'll consider this matter closed. Yes, sir. The defendant stepped back from the podium. He folded the papers carefully, precisely, as if they were something precious, as if they represented more than just parking ticket dismissal paperwork. Maybe they did. He turned to leave, then paused and turned back. Your Honor? Judge Caprio looked up. Yes? I really am sorry. Not just about the ticket, about everything, about wasting your time, about the lies, about making you question whether my real problems were even real. The judge nodded. I believe you, Mr. Brennan. Now go prove it to yourself. The man nodded once more and walked toward the back of the courtroom. His gait was different than when he'd entered, less rigid, less defensive. He moved like someone carrying a weight, but one he'd chosen to carry rather than one forced upon him. As he reached the door, the clerk called the next case. The courtroom machinery continued its steady rhythm, but before the next defendant could approach, Judge Caprio made a small note in his personal file. Not for the record, just for himself. Some people leave this courtroom angry, some leave relieved, some leave grateful, and some, a rare few, leave changed. He looked up as the next defendant approached. Life in Providence Municipal Court went on. Papers shuffled. Case numbers were read. People stood at the same wooden podium where Michael Brennan had stood, gripping its edges with white knuckles, telling their stories. The judge listened to each one, ready to hear the truth, ready to show compassion, ready to give second chances to those who earned them. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived on Judge Caprio's desk, handwritten, 3 pages. The handwriting was careful, deliberate, the work of someone who'd taken time with every word. The judge read it during his lunch break. It started with an apology, a real one, specific and unflinching. It detailed the lies, acknowledged their impact, explained the fear that had motivated them without excusing them. It talked about the community service hours already in progress, the conversations with nurses, the time spent with families in waiting rooms, the perspective gained from watching people face actual emergencies with grace and strength. The final paragraph stayed with him. I came to your court expecting judgment. I received accountability instead. I'm learning the difference. Thank you for believing I was worth teaching. Judge Caprio set the letter aside and returned to the afternoon docket. but he thought about it periodically as the day wore on. Thought about the man who'd stood at that podium, white-knuckled and desperate. Thought about the choice to offer mercy wrapped in responsibility rather than punishment wrapped in contempt. The courtroom filled again after lunch. More parking tickets, more minor violations, more people nervous and scared, hoping for understanding. Case number 8491, the clerk called. Sandra Martinez, expired meter violation. A middle-aged woman approached the podium. She looked exhausted. She looked worried. She looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Ms. Martinez, the judge said warmly, good afternoon. Before we discuss the citation, I have a simple question for you. She swallowed hard. Yes, Your Honor. What happened? 2 words, an invitation, a chance to tell the truth and be heard. The woman took a breath, and she began to speak. Outside, the afternoon sun slanted through the courtroom windows. The wood paneling glowed warm. Papers rustled. The court reporter's fingers moved across her keyboard in their steady rhythm. And Judge Frank Caprio listened, the way he always did, the way he always would. Because in this courtroom, small violations revealed big stories, and everyone deserved to have theirs heard.